Hi ELA colleagues, and thank you for watching this video where we're going to be looking at some examples of authentic performance task in English language arts. Before we begin though, I want to say a few things. First, thank you. It is humbling to work with such dedicated educators who love their students and want them to grow not just academically, but socially and emotionally as well. The second thing I want to point out is we are doing this in the vast majority of our units, not only because we're using resources from the Rears Writers Workshop out of Teachers College at Columbia University, but because we are dedicated professionals who want to prepare our students for life after school. So this will act as a refresher or a reminder of the good work that we're already doing. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some examples. Now, I want to re-highlight some of the characteristics of authentic performance tasks that we are looking for, and this comes from the committee that met last winter to examine how we would define authentic performance tasks at our school. And I would want to really highlight that first bullet point, that authentic performance tasks allow for students to transfer their knowledge to a new situation. We want to make sure that when we give an authentic performance task, we are making sure that students can apply their knowledge to a new situation. It would almost be as if you're studying to be a mechanic and you're looking at texts about parts of different cars and car models and processes on how to fix particular problems. Well, when you want to apply that knowledge, you want to bring a car in that has a problem and you want to apply that knowledge to diagnose the problem with the car and fix that problem. We want to be doing the same in our classes. Now, there are two particular resources or strategies that we can use as we're thinking about creating an authentic performance task for the standards that we have identified in a unit. And many of us already do this mentally. This just puts it into a written form. Maybe this will be helpful for you. Now, Wiggins and McTighe, when they talk about creating authentic performance tasks, they use the acronym of GRASPs. And if you think about each of these different components, you'll be creating an authentic performance task. The first is, what's the goal? What's the challenge or a problem? If I'm bringing a car into a shop for a mechanic, what if the car doesn't start? What if the check engine light is on? What if there's not alignment with the wheels? What if something's on fire? What's the particular challenge or problem a student's going to try and overcome in this authentic performance task? What's the role the student plays? Because the role that they're coming at this problem from is going to change how they approach it and what they're going to be creating. For instance, again, car comes into the shop. Are you the mechanic or are you the person that's bringing the car in and has the problem with their car? In terms of the audience, every authentic performance task can be published, can be presented. So who is it being presented to? Is it professionals in the local community? Is it administration? Is it other teachers, other students in the class, or other grades? In terms of S, what's the situation? What's the context that frames the problem or the challenge? So for instance, you bring a car into a shop, someone brings in a 2004 Nissan Pathfinder, and they say the check engine light's on. Can you fix this? Can you figure out what the check engine light's for and fix the problem? So the situation is the type of car, the car model, and the issue that the driver sees. The challenge is diagnose what the problem is and fix the problem. In terms of P, this is talking about what the students are actually making, whether that's writing an argumentative essay, whether that's creating a narrative podcast, whether that's writing an informative video essay, whether that's participating in Socratic seminars or lit circles. What is the student actually going to be making when this performance task is done? And lastly, standards. How is this being assessed? What is the grading tool that you're using to assess this authentic performance task, whether that's a particular set of rubrics or whether that's a checklist based on the type of standard that's being done? And again, we want to create these grading tools not necessarily for us, but we want to create them for students so that they can track their own progress towards the academic goals that they're making. Another resource that you can use between how we are identifying our standards and how we can align that with authentic performance tasks is this graphic organizer. And again, we're already doing this in our minds as we plan our units anyway, but this is a good way to look at that process as it's written down. So if I'm in an economics class and the end goal is that students will understand that price is a function of supply and demand. I had to think about the different types of thinking that students will need to demonstrate in order to learn and master that standard. So some of these will be simple order thinking skills like explain, and some of them will be higher order thinking skills like interpretation or application. Now, the simple order thinking skills will probably be my formative assessments. This will let me know that students are on track with the basic foundational knowledge to then apply that to a new situation. And the higher order thinking skills, which we want our students to develop over time, are going to be our summative assessments. And once we identify the types of thinking that students need to do, we can then pair that with an assessment that will demonstrate that students are doing that kind of thinking. And again, we're already doing this in our classes. Now, I do want to highlight where you can see these examples. So if you go to our BFS curriculum folder that was shared not only in the email that I sent, but last year, if you go to the UBD exemplar subfolder and go to stage 2 examples, I've separated them out into different disciplines. So if you go to the ELA folder, we have 3 examples here. And I chose these 3 examples because these are 3 different ways to create an authentic performance task, including more traditional means that we think about. So if we go to example 1, and we look at the standard that all students will read various materials and texts with comprehension and critical analysis, that's a fairly broad standard. So the context that that's going to be applied to the standard is Catcher in the Rye. The performance task is down here if you'd like to pause the video and read that. And looking at this, students are being put on the role of an advisory committee diagnosing Holden, who's been sent to this hospital. This is a written form, a written report that students do in multiple disciplines outside of the humanities field. Now, example 2 I chose because this is more of a traditional authentic performance task that is done in ELA classes. If you take a look at the standards here, this is about not only the construction of writing, but the ability to write narrative. So not only are we talking about the process of writing and drafting and revising, but we're also looking at the context of that, which is through narrative writing. And if you scroll down to the next page, which is stage 2, you're going to see that students are going to be writing a journal entry based on certain prompts, going through that drafting and revision and writing process. This is a fairly traditional authentic performance task that's been done for decades. And this is still applicable. We need students to be able to go through that writing process and be able to think creatively about how they can communicate that writing, whether that's informative, argumentative, or narrative. Now, the third example that I have is fairly simple, and you don't even see standards in here, but I included it because some of our Common Core standards are about speaking and listening. We want our students to be able to communicate clearly, not just in writing, but in speaking as well. So this is looking at the ability of students to write motivational speeches. They would have to, of course, write this beforehand, practice this, and perform it. This is something that students need to know in every discipline, how to listen, how to speak when you are working in different disciplines. And again, what I probably gave you was a reminder of units and assessments you already are using in your classes. So hopefully this confirms some of the great work that you were already doing. Now, if you have any questions about this, if I was unclear, if you have any follow-up questions, or if you'd like me to take a look at some of the units that you've created this summer as you are thinking about and revising and planning for next year, please reach out. I am a resource for you, and I want to partner with you to equip you with whatever you need to meet the needs of your students. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.